Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Hey guys, real quick, before we jump into the episode, I need you to do the 3 S's for me. What is that? First of all, I need you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss an episode of our podcast. Number 2, I need you to share it with your family and friends. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else. Lastly, I need you to say something. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to see from us, what you like, what you don't like. We are open to your suggestions. We want to know everything that you want to let us know about the podcast. All right. Now, get back to the episode. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. So deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to our podcast on all of our podcast listening platforms, as well as check out our YouTube channel. Make sure you guys are checking us out on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, where we have several podcasts there, including the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, which is our sister podcast, where I just talk with other girl dads like myself about the daddy-daughter relationship in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which you are listening to now, or watching if you're watching it on YouTube. So both of those can be found on our YouTube channel, which again is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. There are also some other podcasts that I have there on the podcast as well, and some more podcasts that's coming. My goal is to have a podcast released every day of the week, right? So we're trying to get up to 7 podcasts. So every day of the week, you have a new podcast and a new episode that comes out. So make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the podcasts when they come out. Also, we are pleased to be announced our podcast is sponsored by our new school community, which is the Deal to Heal School for Living. As we said, our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. And this just allows us to do it even on a greater scale. So you guys can get, we're offering resources and workshops to help you to level up in different areas of your life. Again, you guys can go to the school community. The link will be in the descriptions to join our school, Deal to Heal School for Living. Or you can just scan the QR code in the upper corner if you're watching this on YouTube. And the first week is absolutely free. So you can go there absolutely free. Check it out. Check out the workshops that you have access to just by joining. And then after that, it's only $27 a month. And you have access to a new workshop every month. And so make sure you guys go and check that out. Again, that's the Deal to Heal School for Living on the school platform, the school community platform, or you could just scan the QR code in the corner in order to access that. Again, the first 7 days are absolutely free. So we want to make sure that you guys take advantage of that. But today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. Phillips. How you doing?
I'm well, brother. How you doing today?
I am good. First of all, I want to say thank you for being here, because you could have been anywhere else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and I definitely appreciate it. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yes, sir. So my name is Kerwyn Phillip. I am an author, speaker, and financial literacy advocate. I'm the author of 3 books. The first one is called Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens. The second is called The Money Twins, Nigel and the Nigel Learn About Payment Methods. And the third book is the ABCs of Financial Literacy coloring book. You know, my platform is about teaching young people the basics of entrepreneurship. That way they don't make the same mistakes we made when we were coming up, right? Give them an advantage that we didn't have.
All right, I love it. I love it. And so I want to go back a little bit, Kerwin, even before
Yeah.
we get to your background and everything. Because we were talking off air, and this is our second time around because we actually did our first interview when you released the first book, which was Malik's First Job, and that was 2 years ago. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? Like it's been a minute, man.
Yeah.
It's been a minute. I'm like, wow, I knew we had did something before, and I was kind
Yeah.
of going back like, dang, I thought it was I thought at first, off the top of mind, I thought that we had been on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, and
Mhm.
then he's like, no, that wasn't it. And then it was kind of like, oh, it was the first book when it first came out,
That's right.
and that was 2 years ago. Definitely glad to see that. Not only are you still doing what you do, but you're still advancing because now you got newer books.
Yeah.
Because in the entrepreneurship space and all the things that we do,
Yeah.
it's easy to be up today and down tomorrow. You talk to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, I started this new business, and you're like, all right, and then a year later and they're like, oh no, I'm not doing that no more. You know what
Right.
I mean? And so whenever I see somebody that's still at it, you know what I mean, I'm
Yeah.
always like, all right, so that's good. So yeah, you still at it, not just still at it, but making great strides because now you got 2 more books. But
Right.
let's go back, right? Let's go back into the early Kerwin, right? So what was the thing, even your life, right? Your
Right.
situation, what you kind of made it through that made you decide, what, let me attack this thing of financial literacy
Right.
for kids, and even your own story, you know what I'm saying? How
Yeah.
you even got into the financial literacy space.
Yeah. So, it kind of goes to, I think back to like my early adult years, when I came out of college and I was all out on my own. And, a lot of the mistakes I made financially, just not knowing the basic principles, which made me, make a lot of mistakes. I didn't know about paying myself first, didn't really know the science behind credit and, and things of that sort. And I just got caught up in a whole lot of bad situations, like not knowing how to save, right?
Mhm.
I think about again my at the time my girlfriend, now wife, right? We were out living in Georgia, and I was working. She was pregnant, so she was at home, and every time I got a paycheck, it was like I hit the lottery, right? Because I got paid every week, so he just okay. The bills are paid, okay, bet. So we got this extra money. Let's go. Let's go to this new restaurant. We never ate there before. Let's go do this. Let's go. So we just had a spending habit, right?
Right,
And didn't really focus on saving. And then all of a sudden, life started life, and things started happening. Okay, the
right,
car broke down. Okay, need to get the car fixed. Couldn't get the car fixed. Need to get a new car. So now we went and purchased a car, but didn't really budget the car payment into our monthly expenses, right? So this thing started creeping up slowly and slowly, and then all of a sudden, just ends weren't meeting the way they were. We just couldn't figure it out, But if we had properly planned and thought about what we were doing, then it would have had a different outcome. But basically, again, like I said, not having a savings, and when you fall into that trap, it's like, okay, now I need to borrow money to pay for things. So
Mhm.
then oftentimes you get caught up in predatory lenders and high interest rates because you just didn't know any better. And once you get caught up in those type of situations, it takes you years to get out of it. You know,
Yeah.
and once we was able to figure some things out and get to a stable position, part of me was always wanting to give back to the younger generation. So I started doing some financial literacy workshops. Had some book clubs, and was working with some young people and using like The Richest Man in Babylon and a few other books
Mhm.
as part of the book club. And the kids had a hard time, with the content. So I said, you know what, I could just write my own book that really caters to their environment, something they can more so relate to. And then that's what gave birth to Malik's first job.
Okay, cool, cool. So were you working in the financial literacy space yourself, or did you just by trial and error of your own your own habits was like, yeah, I got to do something to help the next generation?
Yeah, so not necessarily in the financial space, just something that I just felt I needed to do. Oftentimes people, like you'll find folks that, let's say, former drug addicts will then become drug counselors,
Mhm.
right? Because they know the environment, they know the people that fall within that addiction. So the same way, I felt that, okay, well, I came from a bad place and was able to overcome it. So who else to go back and help teach? Someone who's been through those bad situations and figured out a way to get out of them.
Yeah, yeah. So how important do you think? I mean, I know you think it's important, but how important do you think it is to teach the next generation about financial literacy, right? Because again, some of us, even those who were came from a more financially stable background didn't
Hmm.
necessarily get the teachings, you know what I'm
Right,
saying, of how to operate it. It was like we just here. Like you
right,
said, you were doing pretty good, you're making pretty good money, you earn, you spend, you earn, you spend, and not really being taught, even though you're in a good space to
right.
save for the, you know what I mean, and having that example. So how important do you think that is for us to be able to not just want our kids to do better, but actually start teaching them, hey, let me show you early how to kind of navigate this thing with money.
Yes. So I mean, as you just mentioned, as parents, we always want our children to do better than what we've done, right? And there's so much going on in society that we have to be, um, diligent and proactive
Mm-hmm.
in making sure our children are educated. We can't rely on the system to educate our children because they may not, the system may not, give them what they necessarily need. And I
Right.
think, part of the foundation, when you teach your kids morals and different things of that sort. But I think finances are also important because that's like the major foundation within society. Like you can't function, without having a good financial, foundation, without having money in the bank and money saved up. Because
Mhm.
again, life happens, and it makes it easier to navigate life as well. So, giving them again the basics and being intentional. That's what I was looking for. Intentional about making sure they have these foundations is critical, for their existence and their survival. Because again, you think better when you're financially stable, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
that's like one less stressor,
Oh
you know, that you have to worry about, right? So when things are in order, then they can really excel and do so much great things.
yeah, yeah. So what's your average age as far as who you help? Because I'm in the space now, right? And just being transparent, my daughter will be 23 this year.
Okay.
By the time that this comes out, I think her birthday will be maybe a couple days after, right?
Okay.
And so I'm in the space of even helping her to be able to start thinking about her finances and things that she needs to do, because I'm like, you're going to be 23, you're a young lady now,
Hmm.
you have to be able to take care of yourself.
Right.
And she's always had jobs, but they've always been like McDonald's, Walmart, something like that. I'm like, you can't take care of yourself on that. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't support yourself. I don't need you to do anything for me. You be able to support yourself, you know what I'm saying, stably without me is the best thing you could do for me. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because it takes away, and not even from the financial part of, my obligation to you, but it takes away the stress for
Yeah.
me, knowing that you're okay and knowing that, you can move how you need to move, as a young adult,
Yeah.
especially being in a different state than I live in. So you ain't down the street. You know what I'm saying? So when something happens, daddy can't come to the rescue. I got to jump on a flight, you know what I'm saying, to get there, And so what is the kind of your average that you work with as far as students? Is it younger kids? Is it college kids? Or, do you kind of fluctuate in between?
Yeah, I mainly fluctuate because it's funny because people ask me to work with different age groups. Like, a few months ago, I was at an elementary school, doing a book reading, and talking financial literacy to third graders,
Mm.
third and fifth graders. Then last week, like over the weekend, I was sitting down with some middle school kids, and in a couple of weeks, I'll be talking to high school children. And about also last week, I did a workshop for some young adults between 18 and 24. So, you know, I run the gambit from
Yeah.
from youth all the way to young adults. I think they all need it. From different stages and from different angles.
Yeah, and like I said, that college or young adult stage, I think they kind of need it the most because
Yeah.
they're in this space of newfound freedom, should you
Yeah.
say? You know what I mean? So now you're able to do what you want to do and move how you want to move.
Hmm.
Um, but that also opens you up to the potholes that you don't know nothing about,
Exactly.
or you start getting those credit card offers all the time and pre-approved and all that. And I remember having that conversation with my daughter, like just because they send you something tomorrow you pre-approved don't mean that you go sign up for it or that you accept it,
Right.
because you don't know the backside of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see, oh yeah, they're gonna give me some money, yeah, but how much is that interest and how you know what I mean? All the rest of that stuff that you're not ready to jump into
Right.
quite yet. And so yeah, I know that that's that for me, that's just in the space that I'm in now, trying to get her to understand those things.
Yeah.
But when we talk about good money habits, right? Because you talked about your money habits, and that was
Yeah.
how you kind of got into the situation that you were in. And I can attest even to that somewhat. When I started early on a good track, right? Because I just
Hmm.
was already kind of had my mindset on some different things.
Yeah.
By the time I got out of high school, I was already looking into, what is mortgages and what I need to do to buy a house. My mind was already there, you
Yeah.
know. So financially, I started off somewhat in a good space. Still didn't know about credit. Still didn't know that, about not co-signers, but what do you call it when you put someone on your credit card?
Oh,
Um,
why can't?
yeah, I can't think of the term.
If you didn't
Um,
ask, I could have told you.
yeah, yeah. So, but so what it is, even though we can't think of the term, we can explain
Yeah.
it. So
Right.
basically, if you have good credit, you can put your kids. I say your kid, you can put your
Yeah.
kid on your credit card, and they will get your credit history, right? So
Right.
they're starting off with a stable, already already created, should I say,
Yeah.
credit history, right? So even though I started off good financially, I didn't even know about that because my mom had perfect credit. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I started out building my credit, and so had I known, and I'm sure had she known, she would have put us on her credit to have us start off, with a nice credit score and things of that nature.
Right.
Because I actually was able to do that for my daughter when she got
Nice.
her first credit card. Her credit score was better than mine. And I'm like, how is it better than mine? It's my score. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And so when we
Yeah.
talking about those different credit, not credit, but money habits, what
Yeah.
were some of the money habits that you had to overcome, and even some of those same habits or new habits, should I say, that you teach kids now so that they can make different choices and know a little bit better than what you did.
Yeah. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, I had, again, it wasn't in the habit of saving. Um, and just got caught up in, like I said, in predatory lenders, bad credit,
Mhm.
things of that sort. Not paying bills on time. You know, uh, I just think back to, I mean, got a computer, and just never paid the bill on it. You know,
Mm.
and just this was kind of lackadaisical about the whole situation. 'Cause I didn't know the importance
Mm.
of of having good credit, and just having good money habits, saving and everything else like that until everything collapsed and we had to kind of figure things out and kind of struggle our way out of it. So now when I teach kids, just again talk about the importance of saving, right? The importance of having the right mindset when it comes to money, right? Not just being lackadaisical and just nonchalant about it, but being diligent in making sure that you're educated about how money works, about how to invest, and seeking out wisdom from those in case you don't know a particular topic about money. Go and teach, go educate yourself, or seek somebody else who knows. Get some help, right? Just like your financial health is just as important as your physical health. Like if
Mhm.
if your arm is hurting you, or if you got some pain, you can go see the doctor, right? Because the doctor knows how to fix the body. So the same way, if you're having some financial struggles, you go to somebody, an expert that knows these different money systems. Okay, that may look at your own personal situation and say, okay, this is what you need to do, help you set some goals, right? I tell people all the time, oftentimes we go inside the bank, we just go straight to the teller and just either make a deposit or take money out. But there's
Right.
other people within the bank, right? You have that's inside those offices that are there to help, that can tell you about some of the services that the bank provides, right? If you're trying to fix your credit, they have credit, repair programs. You're trying to buy your first home, they have, home buying programs and home buying workshops. Because like nowadays, a lot of financial institutions are really stressing the educational side, right? They have,
Mhm.
different programs and workshops and, online resources to help educate the their customers, because they know, because we see the history of what happened during the different crises that we had in this country, where people got caught up, and they were trying not to let that happen again. So we want to make sure people are educated about that.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing because, like you said, especially with the history of our country and what's been happening with the housing
Yeah,
markets and things of that nature, and even if you go back, years before that, in this country, just being African American with redlining and all of those things,
yeah,
and predatory lending and all of that. So
yeah,
I'm definitely excited that even the banks are even taking a more positive approach with
yeah,
teaching people how to operate with their money and their credit and things of that nature,
yeah,
because that's something that I think we were definitely missing. Like I said, we, even those of us who had good jobs, because I remember my dad, we went through, when I think about my earliest childhood, my
hmm,
dad worked for the phone company,
yeah,
and we lived I want to say higher middle class lifestyle at that time,
yeah,
here in Chicago. So we had the big house and the picket fence, literally, and the dog. We had a camper. We would take, vacations in the summer. You know what I
yeah,
mean? We did all of that. So we lived a real good lifestyle.
yeah,
There were some things, and I was young, so I don't know the details of what all happened, but I know we end up losing everything,
wow,
and so you got a husband and wife with 9 kids that go from your own house, your own cars and campers and vacations and all that,
yeah,
to all of you, 9 kids and the husband and wife sleeping in one bedroom in your mom's house. You know what I
wow,
mean? And so I always give props to my dad, because a lot of guys would have been like, you know what, I'm out of here. You know what I'm saying? But he stayed and he stuck it through with us. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And we were able to, over the years, or should I say, they were able to, over the years, to rebuild and, end up, getting a new house. And, but I just remember that transition of, living that lifestyle where we had everything we could ask for. You know what I'm saying? From a child's point of view, just looking at it, and then, to go through this time period where, we were scraping to get by. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And there were nights that um, we didn't eat, and then nights that, the sacrifices that my dad made where we did eat, but he didn't eat. You know what I'm saying? And being able to remember that contrast of those two realities that I lived through.
yeah,
Like I said, I don't know what the situation was and how we end up losing everything.
yeah,
Um, but I do remember even my mom in the earlier parts of our life being into entrepreneurship. And we can talk about entrepreneurship a little bit too, because I think
yeah,
that's a major space for us to financially, to empower people. Because I remember my mom was in entrepreneurship. She always was selling things, and we got into it early because, I don't know if you and other, I'm sure they do it in other cities, but in Chicago, when you would come off the expressway and you come up the ramp, and there'd be people that would be selling things right there on the side of the
Yeah.
street.
Oh yeah.
That's what we did. We did that. I started really young doing that.
Mm.
We were doing the '90s, so we was in the Jordan era.
Okay.
So we were selling T-shirts and all of those things, and made a lot of money during that time period. So we knew pedaling, but we
Mm-hmm.
didn't necessarily know entrepreneurship. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like, we knew how to sell stuff and make money and make a profit, but we didn't
Mm-hmm.
really know the ins and outs of it, and really being able to take those um, traits or whatever and build it into an actual business,
Right.
and be able to, from a business standpoint, to be able to grow. My dad was a mechanic, and I always think about, he always told us, I'm not going to make you guys do what I do, but you got to learn how to do something, with your
Right.
hands. But I always think about, had he, taught us or made us learn how to be mechanics, because we all still kind of do stuff with our hands.
Yeah.
That what we could have built with that, as far as a family business and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think that they had the vision for
Right.
entrepreneurship. Like I said, we knew how to pedal. My mom
Yeah.
was the candy lady. You know what I mean? We had our van. She would literally set our whole van up like a mobile store.
Yeah.
And we would go after school. We would drive to like the park and sell candy to the kids and all of that. So we always we were into selling stuff or whatever. But we just
Yeah.
didn't have that the actual knowledge of what it meant to really be an entrepreneur. And so,
Yeah.
even in your teachings, because I'm sure that's a part of it,
Yeah.
when you talk about financial literacy, is you can't teach people how to manage money without teaching them how to make money. What I'm
Exactly.
saying? You got
Exactly.
to have it to manage it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even in your experience, how has your journey been of entrepreneurship, and how important do you believe that is to also pass that to the next generation as well?
Well, again, that's another extremely important, skill set, mindset, again, it needs to be passed down as well. Recently I was talking to my mother. I mean, I remember as a child, because my mother's, is from Barbados, and as a child, my great grandmother, she was like the neighborhood candy lady,
Mhm.
down in Barbados. And I remember as a child, after church, there'd be a line outside the house, because the church was like right across the street from the house.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing like people lined up to buy like pastries, candies, and all kind of stuff from my great grandmother. And my mother was telling me the story that my great grandmother, she helped mentor other women in the community about how to make money, because there's a couple women who had some relationship issues. Their husbands left them, and they didn't
Mhm.
have any way to make money. So then my great grandmother showed them, say, look, this is what you do. This is how you make these type of candies. You make these type of cakes and stuff like that, and you go out there and sell it. I'm gonna show you how to do it. So she mentored them, and then one woman ended up, from my great grandmother mentoring her, and showing her how to sell goods. She ended up opening up a bakery, her own bakery,
Mhm.
that came from my great grandmother's, working with her.
Right.
So there's several examples of her helping folks, and it's funny that now, in addition to me writing books, I also am a co-founder of an organization with youth that works with youth entrepreneurs, um, where we highlight young entrepreneurs, we provide a platform for them to showcase their goods. We have an event coming up, the Richmond Children's Business Fair is coming up in a couple of weeks, where we have this will be our ninth year hosting the event, and every year we
Okay.
have close to 70 youth entrepreneurs, all under the age of 18, that come out and showcase their goods. And we always have a great turnout, for kids just being creative and making money for themselves. Because oftentimes, like kids, let's say those that like in middle school or elementary school, they want to make money, right?
Mhm.
They can't necessarily go and apply for a job at a traditional business because they're just too young. So
Right.
what else can they do? They got to be creative and make their own, find a way to make their own money, right? And they see like a lot of their favorite entertainers and social media influencers venture into entrepreneurship. They see folks selling T-shirts and and all kind of stuff, jewelry and things online. So they want to do the same thing. So we have like a lot of kids that venture into entrepreneurship. Um, and just and I think it's a great skill set to have because it goes way beyond just selling that particular good. If you think about you're an entrepreneur, so all the ups and downs that goes with
Yeah.
having a business. Just imagine a child experiencing that at a younger age. In the book by Malcolm Gladwell, the Tipping Point, where it speaks about the 10,000 hours it takes to master a particular skill. Oftentimes, we as adults, we wait until we become adults to start tinkering and trying to figuring things out, to figure out what we want to master. So imagine a child, 11, 12-year-old, who's starting on that venture for that 10,000 hours. They're starting at age 11 and 12, right?
Mm,
So imagine where they're going to be by the time they turn 18, right? They
right.
have all that years of experience. So now they're ready to jump to a whole nother level at age 18, and again, so it's very important for them to have that entrepreneurship skill set because again, as you mentioned, you can't talk about money habits if you don't have money, right? So,
Right.
so you gotta have something to work with, and then once it becomes real, then you start teaching some of these habits, then the habits become real because like I was doing a workshop over the weekend, and I was working with some middle school students, and I said, what I'm going to do today, I'm not going to just go into a whole lecture. I'm going to have you all do an exercise, right? So in the exercise, they had to pick a career, a salary, a family structure. So once they had that together, say now you have your family structure, your salary. Now let's look at housing. Do you want to rent? Do you want to purchase? And we had, of course, prices and stuff like that. Different, apartments, houses, different rooms and stuff like that. So I had to pick. And then, okay, now you have your salary, you have your gross pay, your net pay. Now you got to start paying for things. Okay, you have your house, your housing. Okay, now you have to find a vehicle. Now, if you have 5 kids, you can't fit inside of a Corvette. So you got to
Right.
find something comparable for your situation. So they start looking at prices and vehicle sizes. So they had to pick that. The next, you had to go pick, okay, based on your household, how much money you spend a month for groceries. So they had to go through a whole budget, and that sparked a whole different conversation. Right? And I think they got more out of them going through that exercise than me sitting there talking. Right?
Yeah.
Because again, it helped make the lesson real. So now I said, now that you went through that, and like some kids was like, I asked them, I said, what did you learn from this exercise? One said, I'm not going to have any kids. Right? Next one was like, I'm a warehouse worker. I'm not making enough money, so I need to go back to school and do something and figure something else on how I can make more money because what I have is not making ends meet. I'm in the negative.
Mhm.
So I said, now you kind of not really experience it, but like kind of experience it on paper. Now, when I give you the book Malik's First Job, now these lessons are going to hit you a whole lot differently because it's going to make sense as opposed
Mhm.
to just reading it first and not really because sometimes life hasn't caught up yet,
Right.
with the lesson. So if you give that life experience somewhat, now you can give the lesson and it's sinking a whole lot differently.
Yeah, I love that, man. I'm just listening to as you break that down. I'm like, man, that's an amazing workshop. I'm just
Yeah.
listening to you. I recently, a day or so ago, spoke at a high school. There's
Hmm.
a high school here in Chicago, and they have a series called Black Men Speaks, and where
Okay.
they have bringing black men to speak to the boys. And I'm having this conversation with the young men the other day about having a plan, a plan for your life. Like,
Yeah.
don't just be out here winging it. And so as I'm, trying to get them to think about, what are your life gonna look like? What are you gonna have in place? And things of that nature. Again, the same conversation that you're having, not as in depth as you were saying,
Yes.
but or should I say, not as in depth as a workshop the way you were
Yeah.
doing it, but the same conversation pretty much.
Yeah.
And I know one of the boys was talking about he wanted to be a professional baseball player. I'm like, okay. So even with that, I'm like, okay, so cool. So still, what is your life gonna look like? Because when your career is over, because your average career in professional sports, if you're not like one of the best, it's gonna be
Right.
like maybe 3 years, 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
at most. And I'm like, so you 23 and your career is over, then what?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, if I made 5 million, I'll be good. I said no. I said 5 million is gonna be going fast. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like first of all, half of it is going to taxes. You know what I'm saying? He's like, why would they do that? I'm like, that's the government. You know what I'm saying? Because that just like smacked him off the head. Like, what you mean? Half is gone. I'm like, half of it is gone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I said, and then if you're trying to live a baller lifestyle, so you go buy $1 million house, that's $1 million gone. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You go buy, a couple, $100,000 cars, that's another $1 million gone. You know what I mean? And I'm like, so just in your first couple months, you'd have went through that 5 mil, and I'm like, so then what? And so really, I said, I want y'all to really think through, what do you want your life to look like, and what does that really look like? Not just off face value and just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna be good. But no, really think through it so that you'll be able to say, okay, what do I need to do? And then we even mentioned entrepreneurship and things of that nature and investing. And he mentioned how he wanted to get into be an influencer and learn stocks. And I'm like, that's stuff you can do now. Like you ain't even got to be rich to do that. You know what I mean? I even led him to some different websites and stuff to check out. I'm like, you can start that now. You don't need nothing. You don't need money. You don't even need money to start learning.
Yeah.
And so, but again, in order for them to have that understanding, we got to kind of push that narrative, because a dream without the works behind it will always be a dream. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Or it would be a wish, should I say? And it's like, if you ain't got nothing behind it and you don't know how to get there or what it takes to get there, then you'll always just have a dream. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? You'll never realize it. But I don't want you to just have a dream. I definitely want you to have a dream, but not just have a dream, but also have a plan to get there so that dream can become a reality and not just be in fairy tale land.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So before we get out of here, really quick, I know like I said, our first interview was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
When Malik's first job came out. So tell us a little bit about each book and what it is that you want our your the audience and the people who buy it to get out of each book.
Okay. Cool. So this is the second one. This one is the Money Twins.
Mm-hmm.
Nigel and Nigel learn about payment methods. And this one came about because when I put Malik's first job out, that one is more so geared towards like high school kids, like 12 to
Mm-hmm.
17. And a lot of folks were asking, okay, do you have something for like younger kids, like elementary school children? I said, okay, I need to put something together. So this particular book speaks about payment methods that exist today. Because a lot of times children go shopping with their parents and they see their mom or their dad, they swipe the credit card or they swipe the debit card, or they're tapping the phone, or they're sending money through Cash App and all these different ways. And oftentimes kids don't know where that money's coming from, you know. So this kind of explaining to them, okay, well, when you use Cash App or Venmo or Zelle, that money's coming out of your own personal checking account, like your own personal funds. If you're
Right.
using a debit card, again, that's personal funds. A credit card is more so like a loan, right? Where you're borrowing money that you have to pay back, and when you pay it back, depending upon how long it takes you to pay it back, you have to pay interest. And
Mm-hmm.
explain that whole concept to them, right? We'll talk about checks. Okay, what's a check? Bitcoin and so on. And what's funny, I was recently inside of Whole Foods, and I
Mm-hmm.
saw that now they have like the palm readers, the palm scanner, where you put your palm over the device and it's linked to your bank account. Like it reads the veins in your hand, link that to your bank account. I said, well, that didn't make the book because I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
But again, just kind of explaining the different payment methods and help spark conversation, amongst families, right? Letting kids know some of the basic. Okay, this is where different money comes from, and this is the source, and this is how you fund these different things. So, and I think that again, just trying to help spark conversation, because oftentimes within our household we don't talk about money. Like
Right.
the parents, handle the financial stuff, and the kids are in the dark about it. And that's again, that we have to kind of bridge that gap and help open up that door of communication. That way, the kids are getting this information.
Yeah.
So
And I
that's
think a lot of I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think a lot of times too, when we do talk about money, or if the subject of money comes up, it's coming up from a negative point of view. Like I don't have enough money, and money don't
right.
grow on trees, and all. You know what I mean? So it's not a
Yeah.
positive conversation about money.
Yeah.
So yeah, positive conversation when it comes to money would definitely help.
Yeah.
Did you talk about the last book as well?
Yeah. So this is the second. This is the third one. The ABCs of Financial Literacy. This is a coloring book, and what it is, it goes to it has like different financial terms from A to Z, and it
Mhm.
provides a definition for that term, right? So it helps to help build a child's vocabulary around financial literacy. So they're sitting there, they're coloring pages, being creative with their art and stuff like that. But at the same time, they're learning different terms, so that helps to bridge that gap as well.
Yeah, I like that, man. I like that. A lot of great information, man. I'm gonna make sure it's not 2 years from now when we
Oh
we
yeah,
connect again, right? And
yes sir.
I really love the work that you guys are doing with the workshop that you were just explaining, and the expo, the kids expo thing. I think
Yeah,
that is a great and awesome
yes, sir.
idea. I definitely wish you guys great growth with that, and would love to, in the future at some point to come do something like that in Chicago, to be able to
Okay.
showcase something like that here.
Yes, sir.
And in the future we can see what that looks like. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Because I think that would be a great thing, especially getting started with the kids young.
yeah,
Um, I want to thank you, Mr. Phillips. I keep
yes,
saying
sir.
Phillips. I'm putting the S on your name. You know how we do. We just
Yeah,
put an S on anybody's name. Mr. Phillip,
yes, sir.
definitely appreciate you being on. I want you to have the last word, and I want you to leave us with a word of advice, information, and also um, social media handles and things like that where we can find to work with you. I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure you guys are checking us out on our website, the dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, where you can find out more about the things that we have going on right now with our workshop, and things that we have for the future. Definitely the website will be getting a overhaul soon, because it is outdated. But right now the information is still there. You can find out a lot of information of what we have going on. Also, ebooks by ejames.com. As you guys know, that previously was the space where you would go to get our ebooks, including Males to Men and the Core Four, which is the book that we talk about on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father. But if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that we no longer have that website. So if you didn't go to ebooksbyejames.com, you missed a chance to purchase those ebooks. However, the good news is you now can get the ebooks absolutely free when you join our school program, the Deal to Heal School for Living. Again, you can scan the QR code in the corner or go into the description to check that out. So if you join, when you join the Deal to Heal School for Living um, community, you will have access to free resources, and all of the ebooks are there absolutely free, and you can just download them. Again, that community, the first 7 days is absolutely free, so you can go and check it out, see if you like it, take advantage of those resources at no cost to you. Um, Also, check us out at the deal2healtees.com, our inspirational t-shirt line. That's deal, the number 2, healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Make sure you guys go there and check out our inspirational tees, as well as our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our logos on it. There's one for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure you guys go there. Again, that's the deal to healtees.com in order to check that out. One of the things that I've been blessed to do the last couple of years is be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops bi-monthly, discussing the topic of forgiveness, forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, even forgiveness of the world. And so you guys can go to sign up for our next free virtual workshop. Go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up. The workshops are absolutely free, but the information that we give is priceless. So again, go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for our next free virtual workshop. Also, that being said, I'm also pleased to announce that we have started our new nonprofit arm of our company, which is Deal to Heal the Rural Incorporated. We definitely want to do more stuff in the community and to be able to offer programs, workshops, resources to the community, but we want to do it free of charge to the community. And the only way that we can do that is by you helping support us with donations in order for us to be able to offer free stuff to the community. So again, we are pleased to announce our new nonprofit, which is Deal to Heal the Rural Incorporated. Make sure you guys go into the description so that you can click the link in order to make a one-time donation or a recurring donation, because this work never stops. So definitely will appreciate you guys' help in that area. That being said, Mr. Phillip, I definitely appreciate you being on. I appreciate you coming on once again. Can't wait to have you again in the future. I think we'll have to come back and have a more in-depth conversation on the entrepreneurship with the kids. I really love that idea. But again, I thank you for being on and sharing your expertise. So do me a favor. I want you to have the last word. So the floor is yours.
Yeah. So real quick, I know you mentioned you share my social media handles. You can find me all platforms pretty much, just as you see on the screen right here, Kerwyn Phillip, Kerwyn Phillip. So just want to share, to all the listeners that's, and people watching, that parents, we have to be intentional to make sure our children have the information they need to be successful adults. There's so much going on in the world today, so much information out there. It can be overwhelming. I know that, we all live busy lives. We have work and, bills and all this other stuff going on, and, world stuff going on. But we still have to take time, right, despite the busy schedules, to pour into our children. Make sure they have the information which they need, make sure that they have all the tools they need to be better than what we are, right? So that they can take things to a whole nother level, right? That's what it's all about, right? Pouring into the children and passing the baton, because at some point in time, we have to pass the baton down to our children. They got to continue this race. And we have to make sure that they have the information they need to keep running further and farther and being successful. That way, our descendants can continue to grow and strive and make the world a better place. So it's all up to us and doing our part. So that's what I got for you today.
Thank you. That is great. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.